Today on the podcast, we're going to be talking about top 3 and Kamala Harris. What's that all mean? Stick around, we'll tell you.
You're listening to the Paul Prosise podcast.
And now Paul Prosise.
All right, guys. Welcome in. I'm glad you're here. My name is Paul Prosise. You can find me on paulprosise.com. Love for you to join there. We've got some opportunities there for support and all that kind of stuff. We can't do this without you guys and the sharing and the things that are going on, especially on Facebook right now. We're not making much progress anywhere else, but Facebook, it is kind of blowing up. And I'm thanking every single one of you guys for the support and all the likes and shares that you guys are doing. Thank you so much for that. If you are interested in joining that, find me on just search Paul Prosise. You can find my public page and like that. You can find me on Twitter as well. And we've got some great things going on. If you guys are looking to support me, which I could certainly use, this stuff does not happen for free. This stuff takes time and energy. I'm home. The kids are here. They're not in school yet. And there's a lot that goes into this. If you are able to go to my about page on my Paul Prosise, and we can pull that up. And then there's some options there. We'll talk about that later. But for now, let's talk about Kamala Harris and the pick for vice president. And what is your take? I'm really truly interested in understanding what people are out there and saying. And I there's a lot going on, and it's really interesting. The spin that happens almost immediately. And we saw that this was probably the direction that Joe Biden was going to go. The pick was actually leaked accidentally a few weeks ago. And so it's a really well coordinated thing. You started seeing people go out and make puff pieces for Kamala Harris a couple weeks ago. And really kind of smooth over some of those things that really in the primaries, in the Democrat primaries, were really thought to be rough edges. And if you looked at anything in the primaries for the Democrat Party, she did not do well. Her likability factor was in the 20s. Her favorability stuff, all that stuff was so bad with the Democrat Party. And it's not unprecedented to pick somebody that was not that well liked. Frankly, Joe Biden was not that well liked within the Democrat Party as far as from a national stage. Historically, Joe Biden has said a lot of really crazy racist things, and that's very easily verifiable. You can just go out and find those things that he's said. And even recently, you ain't black if you don't vote for me. I mean, all this kind of just crazy things that are just insanely racist. You go back, he calls, when he was advocating for some of the bills that have now the left has said is terrible from a perspective of prosecution of drug people. Like, one law treats black people differently than it may treat white people. That's not necessarily how the laws were presented, but traditionally who uses the particular drugs, where that is, it does seem to be a little bit more racist. And when you start listening to Biden, when he was in the Senate, he was saying that if you don't do those things, they'll be released into a jungle. It's just crazy, the stuff that this man has said. He supported vowed KKK members, and it just his history is insane to me that he even got to this point. I mean, he's tried to run for president multiple times. Just the fact it was like, oh, okay, we'll tap you on the shoulder. It's finally your turn. That's kind of how it feels to me. And then to pick Kamala Harris as what is being touted as this great accomplishment, the first black woman, and it just seems to me that there's a lot of disingenuous things going on, especially within the media. And there's a lot of spin. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that, and then I'm going to talk about my other podcast. And if you guys have not heard Top 3 Podcasts, there's not a lot of you that heard Top 3 Podcasts, but it is another thing that I'm doing. I'm joining together with 2 other friends of mine, really good friends. We've been friends for many years. And we are discussing our top 3 favorites of whatever. So each week we review a candy, or we review a beer, or we review a soda, or we review whatever. This coming week, we're getting ready to, tomorrow, as a matter of fact, we are recording 3 episodes. And in that, we're going to review coffee. We're going to review pickles. Pickles are disgusting. By the way, if you disagree with me, you're wrong. Pickles are gross. I call them solidified boogers, basically. I have a loathe. I just hate pickles. I hate cucumbers. They're gross to me. They just, ever since I was a kid. But I'm doing this for your entertainment purposes. And so we're going to get together, and hopefully we'll have a video of that, but we'll also, we'll definitely be on podcast with the system and everything. So I'm really excited about that. To show you an example of what the things, so I have received a box from snackcrate.com. Snackcrate.com does not sponsor this in any way. I have no affiliation with them. It's just something that it's pretty cool. So what it does is it sends you they send you a subscription thing. From what I understand, this was sent to me. I did not even do this myself personally. And then they send you a bunch of snacks from a particular country within the world. So the first one that I received was from Russia, and the second one I've just received is from Germany. Now, if you've heard me at all, or if you know anything about me, I grew up in part, because my dad was in the army. I grew up in Germany. And so I had a hankering, I have a love, and I have an affinity for German things. And it's just the way things are. And so one of the loves that I developed was a soda called Spezi or Mezzomix, just depending on who's making it, Pepsi, Cola, or just some other brand name. There's several out there. And so in this box, it comes with about 20 to 30, maybe 20 different snacks. And it's pretty cool. And so it sends you all kinds of things. So, I mean, from chocolates to crackers to cookies and chips, and it's really cool. So there's some of the things are some of my favorites that I like to eat just regularly, or like these Leibniz cookies. And I don't know if you guys ever, there we go. So they're butter cakes. They're just crackers that are, we call them crackers, of course. And they're just snacks. They're just butter things. And so this would be in my top 3. So we kind of go through that. We taste things, we rate things. The Russia one was kind of hysterical. I'd encourage you guys to find top 3. Just find top 3 podcasts on any of the podcast platforms that you've seen. If you're listening to me on a podcast platform, you can find me on, find that one that the 3 of us are doing. And it's pretty cool. So this Mezzomix is basically cola or Coke mixed with an orange drink. And it is a staple, frankly, in Germany. It's just something that it's as common as Coke or Pepsi. And so it is, they sent me this, and I am excited because I have not had Mezzomix in probably 15, 20 years. And here's my first drink. Oh, and I'll tell you what, it brings back so many memories. It's amazing how you can hear my kids in the background, and I apologize for that. Hey, it is what it is, right? We have 3 kids here. They're not in school. It's hard to have them be quiet, especially during recording. So if you hear them screaming or whatever, we'll just deal with it. So, and let me know if you're in the same boat. I mean, a lot of people are working from home. Let me know. I'd love to hear how you guys are getting along with that kind of stuff. I've actually recorded 3 or 4 podcasts where I felt like I needed to not put it out there because the kids were whatever, or the dog was barking. And I kind of feel like I need to be okay with things coming out that are not perfect or not as good as I possibly can get it. And I tend to hold myself back and hold content back. I've done 3 or 4 episodes. I've just not even released it because things. And so I would love to hear your comment on that. And what do you guys think about that? And am I crazy? Am I silly for holding it back, or should I just release those things, even if there is dogs in the background or a dog barking? She loves to bark at diesel trucks, which is just why a diesel truck? Because it's loud or whatever. And so anytime she hears a diesel truck, she starts barking. So like, and we have lots of diesel trucks in our neighborhood, and so they just bark. So that's kind of what we do for top three. We get things, we rate whatever. Or one week, the first podcast we did was with beer, and the three of us brought our favorite beer, and it's beer specifically that we enjoyed during quarantine, or things that we discovered or was our favorite during that time. And I brought this really unique beer, and it was fun. It was just a fun thing. So please check us out, top three, and I'd love to engage with you there as well. You can find us. We have a Facebook page. We have Twitter. So Top 3 Show. If you look that up, you'll be able to find us. So moving on to Kamala Harris, I just want to look at some of the footage. And if you're following me on one of the podcast platforms, and you can find this on YouTube as well, and you can see what I'm looking at on my desktop. And as I switch over the scene here, so by the way, here's my Facebook. Paul Prosise. I think you have to do P Prosise. Currently I'm trying to get that switched over, and we're doing extremely well. We have had, I think, close to 30,000 views on posts on my page total, which to me is crazy. We're gaining. We don't have a lot of followers, but this page was frankly only created a few weeks ago. It was released just a few weeks ago, and we're gaining momentum. And I'm just highly encouraged by the support that we're getting, and we're just getting likes like crazy. So Kamala Harris, obviously the vice presidential nominee for the Democrat Party under Joe Biden, and so identity politics to me is really an interesting thing. I don't believe in it. I don't understand it. I just think that if you were an American, and especially so my experience growing up overseas, you don't hear the hyphenated things. You might hear some things being frustrated with immigrants and stuff. Like you see that. I mean, there's things, and it may even venture into racism and that kind of stuff. But the reality is there really isn't a lot of identity politics that really are. Identity politics in America is extremely interesting because everything is to describe yourself other than being American, basically. And I just have a hard time with that because when you start doing that, we're no longer Americans all in it together. We saw all this COVID stuff. We're all in this together, but then we start segregating ourselves into people groups, into tribes, and become very tribalistic in these things. And so we identify her as being a black woman, but prior to that, she was a very proud, and I we'll see what comes in the weeks to come, but she's also Indian American, so she's part black, she's part Indian, and I don't care. It doesn't bother me. Whatever. I mean, great. If she's qualified, then good for her. But I don't understand. I mean, I understand it because for years people have done this, and but it becomes a dismissive thing because, or how am I going to try to phrase this? It's used to pass people off now. And so just like Joe Biden says, you ain't black unless you blah, 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 blah. So you start to identify or have to identify yourself in these people groups. And so many people on the right that may be black are frustrated by this because they're being forced into what they are supposed to believe just because of the color of the skin. Or I'm automatically a racist because I'm not woke and I'm white. So, I mean, it just like these things we dismiss each other. We don't have honest conversations because we constantly are fighting the battle of words. And it just, we obviously know that this is a movement from the right, but we've also seen this, it's a movement from the left, but we've also seen this kind of thing. If you're not pure enough, the Puritans, the puritanical nature of things from a quote unquote, conservative viewpoint. So we've seen these things. I talked about that in the past podcast where the church canceled other people. We didn't use those terms back then, but the church, if you've had an affair or if you've whatever in the Christian entertainment industry or whatever it is, like if you've had those things, if you've done things that were considered a sin within the church, they've been canceled and pushed out. So, and then, or they've just been identified as not Christian enough or not whatever. You know, you see that with like, there's a band called Switchfoot and they're not, don't call themselves a Christian band. They're just Christians. So we play these word games so we can fit in, so we can feel more accepted or try to gain notoriety or gain influence within specific spheres. You saw that kind of, and if you think about it, there's a band in the 80s called Striper, and they had a hit that was on the radio. It was called To Hell with the Devil, but they were a really big Christian band that made it kind of this in the radio for a little bit. I mean, it was kind of more of a one-hit wonder band. But I'm just saying, like, to identify people, we do that. We naturally kind of place labels on each other. And I get that. But when you start to use that, I believe you start to hurt your causes because you segregate everybody into tribal warfare is really what it happens. And everybody's segregated, then nobody can come to an agreement, and there's no such thing as agreeing to disagree because we're all separated. We're all individuals, which is just interesting to me because obviously in the 60s, we were trying to desegregate schools. We were trying to make things come together. But that, if we're being honest, that was actually not a leftist movement. People want to take credit for that now, but that movement, the desegregation, was actually a conservative idea. To desegregate schools was a conservative right-wing thing to do because it was not, and it was it was the Democrats that were blocking segregation. They wanted to keep everything segregated. And it's interesting now that the words and everything that they're doing now is to put us back into people groups, to put us back into the segregation. They're redlining, to use their words, that really was a bad thing, but they're redlining us as a society. They're forcing us into gulags. And I'm not obviously real gulags, not yet, but they're forcing us into thought gulags. And it is really an interesting thing that's going on. You get hearing that with critical theory. If you really think, if you look anything into critical race theory, oh my gosh, I'll have to do a full episode on critical race theory. And it is shocking, this stuff. And a lot of this stuff, frankly, that you're hearing comes from critical race theory. So I was kind of giving you a window into that kind of stuff. But so when we go to Twitter, we see that if you looked at any of the like MSNBC, and I don't even need to show you guys. I don't need to show you the website because it's just all warm and fuzzy. Everything's perfect. Everything's great. But you're not seeing that, frankly, from the left or the right. These are people that don't want to support Kamala Harris and Joe Biden. And it is funny, but I'm going to show you some other people. And I just grabbed a few things on Twitter. Jason Buttrill, he's actually a former intelligence analyst for the DOD. He does a lot of political talk and stuff. People are trying to frame Kamala Harris as a moderate, and it's baffling. So she co-sponsored the G&D. I don't know what the G&D is. Somebody look that up for me. And Sanders Medicare for a bill. And she wants to erase student debt and hand out free college. I mean, these are obviously all the left ideas. The fact that she's even being framed as a moderate is ridiculous. The only thing that she really has maybe in moderation is because she was a cop, but even those policies were insane. She would not even allow, as a district attorney, she would not even allow people to bring in DNA evidence. She blocked those things. So, I mean, just the fact that she goes against the narrative so often, it's crazy to me. I can't believe Elijah Schaefer, says, I can't believe two people largely responsible for the mass incarceration of black people. And if you look at Joe Biden's record, he made lots of legislation that frankly was not kind to the black community. And it has led to a lot of incarcerations throughout the years. And frankly, it's done a lot of white people and other ethnicities. But there's a large portion of the jail systems, as we know, is black. And a lot of that is because of the laws that were pushed through thanks to Biden and his cronies. So the two people are now the presidential and vice presidential VP. That's kind of redundant there for the Democrat Party. When you think you've seen it all, right? So Michael Malice says and points this out. So here's this, and I'll remove my camera thing here for a second. Oops. All right, so you guys can see it. I'll just kind of get it out of the way. So I'll be frank and tell you two Democrats. This is from Sean King, no less. We talked about Sean King the other day in the podcast. I'll be frank and tell you two Democrats that I'm 99% sure I won't be supporting, primarily because of their dismal history on criminal justice reform over the course of their entire careers. There's my dog again. Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. Interesting. Well, now it's so then we look at, that's it for me. And then now he said that a couple years ago. And now this year, just how wonderful how things change. That's it for me. I'm incredibly proud to be to see a brilliant black woman and HBCU grad chosen as vice presidential nominee. I've done political work my whole life. It's rarely these dreams are made of. It's really things dreams are what? Okay, whatever. Kamala Harris is the most progressive VP nominee in American history. Wait, I thought she was moderate. If you look at any of the news things, they're calling her moderate. She's not moderate. Babylon Bee, which is a satire site. I get it, guys. It's just hilarious to me. Kamala Harris is already vetting VP picks. Now, if you know anything, Joe Biden is obviously, it's clear he is struggling mentally with his health, whatever. We don't exactly know, but we can all speculate that he is struggling. He comes out and makes amazing gas. He doesn't know where he is a lot of the times. He's just incredible. There's a lot of there's a lot of people that have done some really good things on just showing you his slide. It's crazy to me. The Hill. I really like The Hill because there's obviously two people on The Hill, and one's conservative, one's Democrat, and so they have different viewpoints. I really like that idea that they have that. So a lot of times you do see more of a balanced approach on their feed. So just in, President Trump responds to Joe Biden choosing Senator Kamala Harris as his running mate. She has my number one. She was my number one draft pick, and we'll see how she works out. She did very, very poorly in the primaries, as you know. She was expected to do well, and she needed she ended up with right up to 2%. I struggle with reading sometimes. I am dyslexic, so once in a while it gets to me. So that's from the president. McConnell, Warren, Sitta can go either way. That's interesting. That obviously has nothing to do with Kamala Harris, but that is an interesting thought. That the Senate, and it might just be political posturing, saying, "Oh, we make sure that they're getting the votes in." But it would be interesting if the Democrats win the Senate, because it's all over if that happens, because they're most likely going to retain control of the Congress thanks to gerrymandering around all these states. It's largely Democrat and probably will be for a long time in the House. And in the Senate, if it goes here in Colorado, we have a Senate race that's probably just because Cory Gardner's really been kind of crap as a Republican senator. The state has gone a little bit more left, and so it's not really even a swing state anymore, thanks to gerrymandering. And it might be this year, we'll see, but most likely it'll kind of be a 50-50 kind of a deal, but with a little bit hedged towards the Democrats. It's kind of been the tradition in the last few elections. And it probably will remain the same, to be honest. But if that Senate race from Cory Gardner or Hickenlooper goes to Hickenlooper, the Democrat will win that. It could mean a big shift. And if Donald Trump does not win the presidency, then all bets are off. Everything changes. Everything. The extreme leftist wokist mentality, all these things that we're fighting against will come to fruition. It's a bad day. It would be a very bad day if and really one of the best things, I think, I've said this here in Colorado and other places, it's actually a good thing that things aren't getting done in Congress, because if if the House is controlled by one party, the other party controls the Senate or House or whatever, it's unbalanced. It's good in a sense because stupid laws aren't getting passed on a regular basis because they can't come to a consensus. So in that sense, it's better in the long term if things don't get done. But we still have sweeping bills come out of Congress and the Senate on a national level. We saw trillions of dollars being spent. The Republicans are not conservative. It just as a whole. There's some conservatives, like true conservatives, fiscal conservatives, that vote against those things. But you're not going to find a lot of them. They're voting in for trillions of dollars of spending. And if we get another round of this bill, we're going to get trillions of dollars more. And it just is insane. So Florida sheriff bans deputies from wearing masks after refusing to enforce that. That's really interesting. So in the article, it basically is saying, even though the governor has encouraged Floridians to wear masks, one of the sheriffs in Florida county, or one of the counties, is saying, no, I'm not going to enforce that. We are not going to. In fact, the officers are not going to wear. This is Marion County. They're not going to wear masks. Period. When they show up, if you hire a sheriff or a deputy for a special event or whatever, they're not going to wear a mask. I don't know what the reasoning behind that, other than he's saying that the studies are showing that it's not as effective. And so there's just a lot of things going on. It feels like to me that there's just a flood of information. I think that's by design, honestly, but we're also just access to information is like never before. We have all kinds of things going on. So what else can we talk about? What I'll throw this out to you guys. What can we be looking at as a podcast, as a group of people like-minded that are just trying to do things better, trying to have a better conversation? So what can we do better? I think there's a lot of things we can do better. We can look at the news and look at both sides as much as possible and say, is this true or this is not? And I've talked about that a lot, and I'm going to continue to harp on that because I do believe that we can do better on these things. So, I'll just throw that out to you guys. What do you guys think? One of the areas that I think I can do better at is something that I said on my personal page recently is, hey guys, I need your help. I'm not a very good self-promoter. It's funny because I'm sitting here talking to you and I'm putting these things out, but it's actually kind of hard for me to put things on Twitter and say, hey, would you mind looking at my podcast? Would you mind watching this video? It is kind of a hard thing for me to do. And, but what I'm going to do now is ask for you guys to go over to, again, my Facebook page. And this is, so we've got people actively liking that page, and thank you so much. Donna Cooter and Philip Carnes. And if you guys are even watching or listening to this, thank you so much for your support. But if you can do me a favor and go over to my website. So on my website, and it's just paulprosise.com. On there, we have an about page. And if you can go to that about page, just scroll down a little bit. There are 2 opportunities to support this podcast and the efforts that I'm putting in. I'm doing a lot of this for free. I am doing all of this, all the equipment, the computers, all these things. It costs money to keep the lights on, all that kind of stuff. And so if you could, find it in your heart to support me in some way, I got a PayPal link right there. I've got other things we're going to be setting up in the future that you might, if you don't want to use PayPal, there's other things that we can do. And so we'll get those up here soon. One of the other options is called Subscribestar. Subscribestar is a subscription-based service thing where it gives you access to more than what this podcast just has. So it does support me financially, and you can do that on different tiers, different monetary tiers. And each tier gives you more access to different things. So you can join my Discord, and you can do that. You can do that for free, as a matter of fact. So my Discord is available for anybody. And what Discord is, if you don't know what Discord is, it is a platform that allows you to connect your communities together. You can have conversations. It initially started out in the gaming industry, and a way for you guys for people to play games and talk to each other, and then do it vocally. So there's a way to talk things vocally. So what that does is it also gives you access directly to me. Instead of just through a website or through contact me, it gives you the ability to talk to me directly. It also, if you are a subscriber through Subscribestar, you can have specific rooms and specific access. And each tier has different abilities or different perks, if you will. So the first tier gives you, we'll do a monthly call, a private call, like a Zoom call or one of those things. And we'll get on and we can have a private discussion and talk things. The second tier does that same thing. You get all of those things, but you also get given it into giveaways and maybe and discounts for merch and all that kind of stuff. So I'm producing t-shirts and things for the podcast. That all these things are designed to really keep things moving forward, so we can continue to keep the lights on, so we can do all these things. And I just can't thank you enough for those. And if you are able to find me on Facebook, P Prosise, or if you find me on Twitter or anything, that's at Paul Prosise on Twitter, on Parler. You can find me on Locals, all those things. You can find different ways of supporting me that don't require any kind of finances at all. But if you are able to go to Locals, go to my page. And I'm just excited for the things that we're doing. So that was the hard part. I hate doing that stuff. It feels weird to me. But I'm doing the hard things so you can learn, or we can do things together, and I'm excited for the future. My name is Paul Prosise. Would you join me? And I'll see you soon.